We're on.
What is going on, my ever-changing Brown? Is
Ever
where
changing
where
brown.
where where are you today, mate?
I'm home brown. I'm
Home Brown.
back at my parents' place and going to be here for Christmas and New Year's, probably next 3 to 4 weeks. Just chilling out, having some good family time because just hasn't been going down as much as we would have liked this year, right?
Mm.
So,
Yeah, man.
yeah, so it's going to be nice. And then also just being home, just switched off for a couple of weeks from delivering sessions and stuff. So, going to be taking time off work. And yeah, so looking forward to it, man. Just looking forward to some downtime. Just thinking about, I'm going to get some reading in. I'm going to get some chill time in. Get some hang with the family, and even part of that is just get rid of social media for a couple of weeks as well. Just
Mm.
switch off from doing that kind of stuff, or just being involved in it because I think it'll be an interesting little experiment to see how much space I find in my brain by getting rid of that kind of what is it? Get rid of that kind of distraction, basically.
Yeah, man. I love that. I've got visions of you kind of picking up a book and be like, blow the dust off it. Be like, oh, what's under here?
Yeah,
Walk into an attic. Like, I've
yeah,
not been here in so many years. This
yeah,
is not
exactly.
you. Love it,
Yeah,
man.
I
I
know,
love
man.
it.
It's like by the end of the 2 weeks, I'll have to bring a library. It's just like
Yeah.
behind me. So yeah, that's the idea. Is just yeah, just get in tune with more important stuff.
Wicked, man. Wicked. It's really nice to hear that. The family's going to be so happy to have you back, man.
Yeah, man. I'm happy to be back as well. There's a story, getting stuff like, what do you want to eat? As we got this, we got that, we got this, we got that, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, cool. All of it's good.
Yeah, take a hike, Sainsbury's local. We
Yeah,
about we about this
yeah.
home life now.
That's it, man. That is it exactly. What about you, man? What's been cracking? How's the week?
Oh man, good week, really good week, productive week. Not really ramping down just yet. I don't really think we're gonna ramp down. If I'm honest,
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
we're just gonna keep gearing it up from now until next year.
Yeah.
But we're gonna have a few days of downtime.
Hmm.
That's gonna be needed. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just going up and up and up and up and up, man. I'm enjoying how things are going right now. Big projects that we'll talk more about in 2021, hopefully. Um, and yeah, just lots on. I mean, we were just on the roundtable that we're doing right now, which is
Hmm.
kind of an exclusive thing that me, you, TJ, and Bilal both. What episode numbers are TJ and Bilal in trivia? Right, let's
So,
go.
yeah, TJ. So we had TJ Singh, Umar's partner in crime when it comes to all things PT,
Yeah,
on episode 15 of the
yeah.
podcast. And then
Check
we
it.
had Bilal, who is Umar's cousin, but he's a corrective exercise specialist, helping people improve their lives through movement. And he was on episode 20.
Oof.
So that was
Slick,
the one.
slick
Yeah,
with the summary and just rolling off the tongue. I mean, can we just appreciate what we just witnessed, ladies and gentlemen? That was
I
special,
think
man. That
yeah.
was special.
Aspie Brown has to be a name at some point, right?
Yeah, that's it. 100%, man.
Yeah.
100%. I'm
Don't know
getting that
why.
t-shirt made up.
Yeah, I think there should be a challenge actually. I think we've had like 9 guests, maybe, yeah, 9 guests.
I'm
We
gonna say
might
more,
be able
bro.
to.
What
Oh,
do you
it's
think?
we. Oh, you asking me to
Feels like
reel them
more.
off? Is this what's going on?
We can go there, but I'm definitely thinking we've got more than that. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We'll say it for
Yeah,
another time.
maybe 10. Yeah,
I know
exactly.
you're going
But
to be doing it in the background, running that file, just being like,
yeah,
what?
exactly. Yeah,
Whiskey,
exactly.
Jude. Yeah.
That's it. Just running in the background. I'll be like, I'll have the odds. I'll just be like mid podcast. I'll just go 10. And just like a Rain Man in friggin' just bust out a number.
Dustin Hoffman, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
What's
That's it.
so tell me, man? Van Brown. He's like, you got a
Van
new
Man
job.
Brown. That's it. Just weekend van man hire. I will be at your
Yeah.
service. I'm gonna whip out the van for all your viewing pleasures. Check out this beauty. I mean, I'm gonna set the stage. So basically, a little project we got going on right now, and
Mm.
required us to hire a van, and take it all over. Look at that! Look at that lovely thing! Isn't that beautiful? Right?
I think you're like one of the few people who thinks an enterprise rent a van is a beautiful thing.
Dude, tell me, trust me, right? I had an experience yesterday. I feel like we bonded,
Go
man
on.
and machine actually bonded yesterday. So
Yeah.
I've never, the biggest thing I've ever driven is my donkey that I have taken all me around the world, which is my Citroen C, well, my Ford C-Max. Goodness me, I must have offended my car
Yeah.
by calling it a Citroen.
Yeah.
Um,
I think you better go. You better go stroke it and tell it everything's
nah,
okay afterwards.
she's already pissed at me, man, because I've been away with this big vehicle over the weekend,
Yeah.
and anyway, the stage is set where we need to go and pick up a vital component. I'm being quite cryptic right now, but in time we shall reveal all. And said component
Dun, dun,
is at the arse end of nowhere in Exeter. Like,
Oh
where is
damn.
Exeter? I've heard of Exeter. It's a
Yeah.
place, but in my head it doesn't really exist because it's just off in the ether, right? Turns out it's about 4 hours away from Leicester,
Yeah.
one way, right? And
Yeah.
so I have to last minute hire a van and pedal on down there. So me hiring the van, okay, cool. I'm just gonna go. I don't like haggling. I don't like kind of ringing around. TJ is much better at that than I am. I'm just more like direct,
Right.
first person. Here, take my money, give me the thing. I have peace of mind. I
Yeah.
have peace of mind. See you later, right? And
Yeah.
so anyway, I do that. Enterprise tell me that the van's going to be quite small, so it should be okay for what you need it for, which is just transporting a few small rolls of flooring, right? Anyway, I get there to Enterprise, and they've got this absolute boat, and I'm just like, what do you want me to do with this? This is massive. This is huge, right? I don't want to drive this. And
Have you ever
especially,
driven anything that big as well?
no, never, not
Yeah.
once in
So
my
you gotta
life.
get used to that a little bit, right?
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
It's just an absolute leviathan of a vehicle, right? And all the respect now in the world for bus drivers and for people that just drive larger forms of locomotion, right? It's
Yeah.
it's 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 impressive, right? And do you know what? Chris Harris, I don't know if you know who Chris Harris is. He's a motoring journalist. No?
No. No.
Legend, like straight up legend. Like, I put him in higher esteem than all of the Top Gear presenters. Like, they're cool,
Right.
they're sound, right? But they're like Shreds. You know, Shreds, the supplement company that are like shouty and
Okay.
loud and funny and cool, but
Right.
the substance is with Chris, in my opinion, right? Like the real. Maybe I'm selling them short. Calling them Shreds is a bit too aggressive. But anyway, Chris Harris said this thing on the podcast recently where it was like, everybody who drives on the road should have to drive a larger vehicle and a smaller vehicle to gain that perspective on, okay, what is it like to be a cyclist when there's a double-decker bus just there?
Yeah.
And probably shit your pants, right? At the same time, what is it like to be a double-decker bus when there's a little tiny ant of a cyclist over there? So gaining this perspective. Anyway, so I'm not too confident right now, right? So it's 10 o'clock in the morning yesterday, and I get behind the wheel of this thing having just paid too much money, in my opinion, anyway. But okay, the thing is like, okay, bring the van back in one piece and you get your deposit back and whatever. So I'm just like, okay, got to get it back in one piece. That's a hefty deposit. And I set off, and I'm proper granny driving the whole way to my first destination, and like being like super hyper vigilant of the mirrors, which are massive. And then the thing has like, obviously being a van, it doesn't have a rear view mirror, right? Because there's just steel behind your head, and then you look at it and you're just like, why'd you put the mirror there then? You're just trolling me now, right? Like, what's the point of having the mirror? It's like, what do I want to look at, my own face?
Oh, so it's actually there, right?
Yeah, it's there. It's just there. Look at it, where it would normally be in a car, but you just see this thing, like that's like the wall, basically, right? You can't see the world. But then when you flick it into reverse, you've got a little reversing sensor on the back of the van that you can see. But the logic behind this is not there. The mirror is this big, right? The reversing camera's this big. At least somebody here, like, help me out. Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh man.
I set off, and I just can't. I'm driving this thing, and I'm just thinking, I'm so scared to pull out of any junction because it's got no pickup and it's just super slow. Anyway, I'm backing up traffic all the way down the street from the first 10 minutes. I'm thinking, okay, this is not going to go well. I've got to go a lot of 100 miles today. I didn't know how many 100 miles. Turns out I'll reveal that in a bit, but a lot of 100 miles, right? And I'm just, that immediate anxiety that just sets in straight away. I don't know if you've ever done anything like that where you're just, your whole body holds a bit of tension through it, and you're just like,
Yeah, man.
I'm not enjoying this right now. And as a result, I'm sure there'll be a biological kickback where you're just burning calories and burning thoughts, overthinking, and you end up getting super sleepy. So
Yeah.
in the first half an hour, this is what I do. I just start to like, I'm driving, being super hyper vigilant. At the same time, just like yawning my ass off. It's like 11 o'clock. I'm
Yeah.
like, what the hell's wrong with me? So I'm trying to get some calories in while I drive. So I'm eating at the
Yeah.
same time. Not advisable, but got to be done. And as would be the case, it starts to lash down with rain. Like I've been driving for
Perfect.
what?
It's
Yeah,
exactly what you want, man.
perfect storm, man. George Clooney, he
This is
he
already a
sent it.
challenge. Just bring it
Yeah,
even more. Bring me more of a challenge. I love
this
this.
is it. This is you went where I was about to go, right? So I'm driving down the road, and the wipers are proper just giving it Wimbledon, right? Like all over,
Wow.
like trying to just keep up.
Giving
And,
it Wimbledon.
giving it
What's that
Wimbledon,
from?
back and forth, mate,
Just
back and
back and
forth.
forth. It's like a tennis match. That's where I went. I was like, I've got to be sure that's what you mean there. Wow.
I was going to go table tennis, but Wimbledon came out. So anyway, and I've never driven in worse rain in my life. Like
Wow.
I've seen worse rain. I've seen worse rain, but I've never driven in worse rain. Like seen worse rain in Kenya. That's another funny driving story, but I'll tell that another time. And it's you know when you get into a vehicle, you don't know where anything is. You don't know where the lights are. You don't know all
Oh
these things.
man, yeah.
You should, if you're clever, you find out from when you get in the van. But yeah, so I get in the thing. I'm trying to fiddle
You
with the
do
lights.
you do that. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you're doing that while you're driving in like
Yeah.
capitulation rain, and just try to
Exactly.
figure out from then.
Absolutely. Just learn of the job, right? And
That's
the
it. It's
best,
like
the best
do
part about this,
first, ask questions later. Just pull the
yeah,
trigger, and then whatever happens happens.
exactly. But the best part about this van is a feature that I had no idea about, and I wouldn't have to have any idea about. It's called lane assist. So lane assist is basically if you
Okay.
wander out of your lanes, it shouts at you and it just beats your ear real loud. Like, hey,
Like, hey,
hey,
get back in line.
wake up! Yeah, straight away. And because the thing, literally, like if this is a lane, the van's footprint on the road is like here. So any
Yeah.
kind of undulation, and coupling that with crazy weather, my van's getting blown all over the place anyway. So I'm lashing
Yeah.
down with rain. First half an hour, I'm sweating and I'm tired. I'm trying to eat at the same time, and I've got to go, like I said, hundreds of miles today. So I'm on the way. And that thought process that you just had just then is where I went to with it. Like I just like peeked out the window, looked at the sky. I was like, I see what you're doing right now. Don't think that I've not been here before. This is a test.
Yeah.
This is a test to see how much you really want
That's
it,
it.
right? 100%.
Yeah.
I went there straight away with it, and from that moment, I was like, okay. And now I get it. Now we're not just driving vans over here. You're asking me to plant seeds of awareness, and you're asking me to reap those fruits right now, because I need to be aware of the lane. I need to be aware of the wipers. I need to be aware of the traffic. I need to be aware of this new vehicle that I'm driving over here. And me kind of rehearsing all that shit while I'm going along is a lot to take in. And yeah, it was an experience, man. It was an experience. Like I said, me and this van definitely bonded over time, because it was just like me and this this object having to make it through a crazy journey, which by the end of it, getting to Exeter was some crazy little like back roads and like hill shit and dark roads where there's no lights and everything. And I'm just like, okay, I'm not very confident behind the wheel of this thing anyway, but now put me in the middle of the woods, and it's not raining anymore, but it's super dark and super cold and super foreign to me. And yeah, but we made it to pick up the goods, get the goods, stick them in the car, and then me being me, I decided to go on a little mission of my own, which took me 4 hours across London, so Exeter. If you look at that map there, I don't know how to describe this, but imagine that Africa thing there is the UK.
South America.
Yeah, South America.
You sure you ended up in Exeter?
I have to edit that bit out, but anyway, right?
Yeah.
I can't point that because it's really right. Okay. South America.
He's talking about Exeter. He actually ended up in Essex. No wonder it was so long. He didn't know where the hell you were. Oh man,
Venezuela over here, right?
Yeah.
I ended up here. Like Exeter is there, and where I went second is here. Literally, I drove across the whole like width of
UK.
southern UK to get to my second destination, and that was a 4-hour trip that way. So me and this van are really good friends right now.
Yeah.
Luckily,
You figured each other out now as well.
Yeah,
You're getting along.
it's like Lord of the Rings Two Towers now. Like kind of we've done
Yeah.
the first epic journey, now we're on the second,
Yeah.
and yeah, man, it was just a total new experience, thrown in the deep end, figure it out. All the expressions that we use in the podcast, like do the thing to have the power, and
Yeah. Yeah.
like that one was the main one. But just mainly just thinking of it as a test was such a nice
Hmm.
thing to be like, okay, if you really want this, and what I went to the second destination for, I really wanted to have the opportunity to do what I needed to do. But there was this thing in the way, which was this journey, right? And that just made me think that it's about recognizing that in the moment and not shitting your pants, and keeping your awareness into the things you need to keep it aware to, but
Yeah.
keeping in mind what's going to happen if you micromanage yourself along the way. And we can go everywhere and anywhere with that, thinking about
Mm.
the the other goals that we have for in our lives. But that for me was a really nice experience. But I got to just face it on my own, no one to look at, no one to call on, and just go through it. Just go through. Even going to the petrol station to fill the damn thing up was like, where the hell is the filler cap now? I don't even know where this is. Like, this is
Yeah.
all just difficult, right? But it was so satisfying, so satisfying at the same time.
Nice.
So that was my ordeal yesterday, and we made it home in one piece. Made it home in one piece. Delivered her back today. Nothing but good memories, and
Yeah.
we're having a good time, man. Having a good time. It was good.
Amazing, man. So it's like, is it when it was over, everything was like, okay, yeah, I realized I got everything out of this, or was it along the journey where you started to settle in and everything was we're now on an even level, or was it right at the end where you realized, oh, okay, yeah, this is what I got out of it.
I'd say it was midway. It was midway. So,
Mm.
say break it into three journeys, right? So Leicester
Mm.
to Leicester to Exeter. I'm falling asleep. I am kind of Rocky Balboa on the ropes. Like this is Clubber Lang's giving me more than I thought he would, right? And
Yeah.
I don't want to play. I don't want to play anymore, right? But then I'm looking at it like, yeah, we trained for this. Like not just we trained for this, but I started taking it back to like if I look at my lineage of people, okay,
Mm.
so we trace it back to Pakistan, to Afghanistan, to India, to these kind of places in the world. These people had to travel. They had to travel. They had to make their way into the new world. Gee, your camera's a bit fuzzy again. I don't know if this is the same thing as last week.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but maybe I don't know.
Mm.
Maybe it'll clear up. Um,
Yeah. Hopefully, yeah.
but that's where my mindset went with it. Is that these people had to travel. I'm of those people. I need to make sure that whatever I pass on, I have to pull that with me. You know what I mean? And I started
Mm.
attaching myself to a thing that was bigger than just me. Like I can be in that
Mm.
moment and start freaking out and start kind of being, oh, I can't do this or whatever. But it's I think it's about looking at it in this big kind of scope. So yeah, the first little bit was me almost checking it and being like, oh, I don't really like this. It's kind of freaking me out, making me feel a certain way. Get to Exeter and the nerves kind of go. I'm like, okay, I made the first journey. I made the first voyage, and the second one was actually longer than the first one. But I know this now. I know this road.
Mm.
I've walked it before, and we can just kind of open up a little bit, get a bit more confident with it. And then the third journey from like edge of London to back home again. So edge of like super West London to back home again. No, East London, was just smooth. I'm just in my flow. But that initial bit of like, oh wow, this is a test, hey, this is a live
Mm.
test right now. I'm aware that it's a test. I thought that was really liberating because a lot of the podcast came out, a lot of the things we talk about came out,
Mm.
and I've got to link this back to Jimmy Judo Wallhead, who is our MMA coach in Leicester. We go down to his gym, Hardy Wallhead MMA, wicked gym. And he's a brilliant coach. And he always talks about how you do it in practice, but then it comes out in the real thing. It comes
Mm.
the instilled information, the instilled data will present itself. So I
Mhm.
felt like that happened. I felt like that happened where it was like, oh, we've done all these podcast talkings. We've kind of rehearsed it and rehearsed it and rehearsed it and rehearsed it. But what good is that if when the light's on you and the stage is set that you just crumble? Like, no, it can't
Yeah.
happen. Like, we're going to figure this out. Like, some people will listen to this being like, oh, you just drove a van, mate, relax. But
Yeah.
at the time, it was a really kind of full on experience, especially with the environment, especially with kind of what I had to go to get done, and it was time sensitive as well. At one point, we're stuck in complete standstill traffic. I'm not going to get there in time. The place is going to close.
Wow.
This is not going to go well. And like, there's all these little things that along the journey are always going to try and play with you, eh? But it's all about doing the things we do, which is keep calm, carry on, but carry on with constant awareness, because it's literally, it takes one moment for someone to cut you up and you to barge into some moment where the road's a bit narrow and you can pull a wheel off the end and end up kind of middle of the field, right? So yeah, man, it was a great experience. Super knackered today, but a really valuable time.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think that's a great metaphor for people when they start on a fitness journey. Try and get to that physical potential. I think it's a metaphor for what people are kind of like going through now as well, in the sense that you you're hopping in this thing and you got to pay attention to so many different things that you're not aware of, and when you do that, your brain goes into hyper alert mode. And like you said, you're hyper alert, but you're tired at the same time, because it doesn't seem to make sense, but it makes complete sense, because that's what actually ends up happening. You're consuming so much energy trying to stay alert that it's also quite tiring at the same time, right? So it's I think there's a big metaphor for it where your brain is a predictive machine, right? So what it actually does is it takes information from our environment and fills in the gaps all the time. So it's not like what's interesting is like, if I'm looking at you, for example, it's not that I actually have the real image of who you are. It's more like it's a simulation. It's like it takes the information that it can pick up, that it's paying attention to, and then just processes it in the brain and fills in the gaps. And then so I have my version of what Umar looks like, and there's this general kind of consensus of who you are, because everybody will be able to recognize it's you, but like what I have in my conscious awareness of what a what represents you is going to be a little bit different to what somebody else will think. So somebody else might be like, oh yeah, Umar, yeah, he's got this beard, and I was like, oh yeah, Umar, the one with glasses. That's how it comes to your mind in a different kind of way. And so when you're in a scenario where it's completely unpredictable, you don't know how to drive this thing, you don't know whether like the controls are for this thing, there's no rear view mirror, which you're super used to having, or there is, but it's useless, and then you got to rely on different sensors. Then you end up having a situation where it's chucking it down with rain, so you're dealing with the elements as well. Your brain is going, I don't know what to do here, because none of this fits any of the modeling that I've had before. So it is super alert and picking up on a lot of information all at the same time. So it's going through that process, and you're super alert and it's tiring at the time. And then you've described what actually happens the more skilled you get at that process, or rather the more your brain starts to get comfortable with what's happening. So you're learning the new skill of driving in the elements in this new vehicle that you don't know. Brain starts to process it, and then it's like it's unexplored territory that has now become explored territory, and you are now a lot more functional, and you've gone somewhere where you haven't been before, and you've taken that and made it your own. So now you're comfortable being in a scenario which you wouldn't have been comfortable in previously. And so that second leg, that second half of your journey is actually a lot smoother than the first half of the journey, simply because you've been there, done that in a way now, right? Yeah. And I think that's it's a really good metaphor for when people are starting out on a physical journey, a fitness journey, when they're trying to achieve their physical potential. Because in the beginning, it's like there's a whole bunch of different factors that you start to pay attention to, and you're kind of like deer in headlights, like I don't know which way to go. And so one of two things can happen is like you embrace it, you lean in, and you just keep going, and you do what you can, and you make small steps and keep going, or you're just like, fuck it, I'm not going to go there. And this is where someone like me and you comes into it, is like, actually, if you are, regardless of where you are, whether you're going to lean in and embrace it, or if you're thinking, oh, screw this is a bit difficult, it's too much for me to handle, you can have somebody to guide you through that process. You can have somebody to go, here's the best place for you to start based on everything I understand about you, and go there, and let's go through that process. And if you're somebody who's not leaning in and is a bit scared to do something, it's like, okay, well, let's just break it down into a manageable step for you. What can you do right now? I can do this. Okay, let's go to that. Can you go to the gym? Okay, if 3 times a week is too much for you, can you start once? Yes, I can. All right, let's do this. And then build it up from there, for example. And then unexplored territory becomes explored territory, and you're succeeding, and you're on your way to being where you want to be. You finish a journey, and man and machine are one.
What's that? Robo-van.
Robo-van. Exactly.
Loved it, man. Yeah, it was so much fun.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. You're totally right in that summation. And that was a really, really succinct way of just articulating the process of yesterday. And what I really liked was, we talk about, like what you just touched on there, is when we as a coach step to a client and we share our awareness, and like you said, we bring awareness to the things that client can handle there and then slowly progress that awareness and diversify it. But we have to form that foundation to work from. It's nice when you get the water splashed in your face and you're like, oh shit, where's my medal? You know, where am I at today? And especially in an environment like we can do it in, like I say, we can do it, but we're comfortable in a jiu-jitsu ring, on jiu-jitsu mats, comfortable in a ring, or with a barbell in our hands, or kettlebells in our hands, or even with some trainers on. But when it's just completely foreign, that's largely foreign. There's a lot to manage, and it's definitely a sense of pride and achievement. And I felt myself kind of G'ing myself up the way I would for a deadlift or a squat, or like a big movement in the gym. Exactly the same, like kind of like you talk about celebrating the wins in the moment. Like me traversing like a busy intersection yesterday, like shifting properly, keeping my mirrors away. I was like, yeah, we're getting this now. This is coming. And I'm just there in the chair being like, I got this. This is not getting me. It's all the same. You know, you said you linked it straight back to the process. If a client goes through with fitness, you would do that. And we do that for clients. Like, we were high-fiving at the end of the set because you couldn't do that before. Like, you're human with your consciousness and your body couldn't make that happen. But like you said, Killian Hamilton says it really well, like creating the associative mechanisms to then branch off from where you are now to where you want to be is the building blocks of moving forward, right? And I've done it with the barbell and with clients, but now it's a case of, okay, do that same thing. What's the awareness points here? Same thing, we use the awareness points in the gym. Can you feel your bum on the bench? Can you feel your core being kept? Okay, well, we need those things here. It's just awareness, and like you said, transferring it to different skills definitely gives you a sense of accomplishment there and then in the moment, man.
Big time, exactly. It's being able to recognize that as well, because we talked about that a little bit with David, right? A couple episodes back. So David, one of Umar's ex-colleagues, who's a PT, but he's also like from the age of like 7 till 17 or something like that. He just spent all that time just dedicating his life to playing classical guitar. So he's basically an expert at classical guitar, and to the extent where he's competing in competitions with guitar competitions as well. So, like, you know, beating other people. He was the best in his age group, I think, at one point as well. So it's like there's somebody who's like highly skilled in one domain, but he was able to take the lessons from becoming highly skilled in that and applying it to another domain, which is physical fitness. You know, it's like two completely different domains, but it's like, okay, here's the principles from here. I can take it from there, and I can apply it to this domain and start to excel here as well. So what you did yesterday was just recognize, is like, oh, these are all the things, you know, we talk about, and we talk about it relative to physical potential and like life in general, but here's a scenario which is actually new to me, and I haven't been thrown in like this, in this way, with this type of thing. Let me just take the principles of the things that we talk about and ruminate on, and actually use it and apply it now, and be like, okay, yeah, this is all good. It's all going to work out because this is just the process in play.
Yeah, man, 100%. So much fun. So like, I said it last week with the multi-dimensional brown, that you can step out of your life and look at yourself and be like, oh shit, this is what's happening right now. This is interesting. This is fun. And you can almost start to do that with like a friend of mine said in a podcast that she's in, like stopping to think, what are we thinking? We don't necessarily do that too often. Like stopping to be aware of our awareness is such a
thinking
tricky
about
thing,
thinking.
right? Yeah, thinking about thinking. Like we chat about Inception quite a lot, don't we? Like that's like a consciousness within a consciousness, right? And that it's fun to think that we can split ourselves to just be hyper aware and then, like we said, you can then create foundations in that state of hyper awareness, and then branch from there as well, right? And this is how you end up running 10 different thoughts in your head. And that expression, if you want something done, ask a busy person. Sometimes it rings true, right? Because you're able to orientate this, that, and the other, and like Minority Report your whole life, because you've been there in so many different ways. Yeah, man, it's a really, really fun experience. And then anybody out there who's listening to this right now, I would urge you. What I learned from that yesterday was throw yourself in the deep end and just see where you're at. Maybe don't hire a van and drive 750 miles in one day, but
Boom.
yeah, I forgot about this. I'm gonna chuck that in too.
I can't travel this year, so I'll just make up my mileage by taking this van around the UK.
We're going on a trip, donkey. Let's go. Yeah, maybe don't do that, but in some way, you got to check yourself. You got to check yourself. Otherwise, like, you just don't know. And then recently, I've been listening to a podcast talking about someone's experience at failing at getting into medical school. And that's just that. And what it sparked in me was perseverance of somebody having to go there, get rejected, go there, get rejected again, go there, get rejected again. And I'm going to link that back to what we talked about last week with the gym. And when you're repping and when you're training, there's certain things that break down in your exercises and your technique and your awareness. And it's only through breakdown that we learn, right? It's like that Maxwell Maltz book, Psycho-Cybernetics. The whole premise of the book is that we only learn through our mistakes. So it's like that sets the stage for future successes. It's so much fun, man. So much fun to be self-effacing in this way and just have the obstacle come to you and present itself like, oh, okay, let's play. And you figure yourself out, man.
Yeah, that's cool, man. There's something you said there is like, if you want something done, ask a busy person. That I'm gonna segue because this is just it just got me thinking, right? And I'm gonna challenge that thought because I say I'm of the opinion, but then again, what depends how somebody is busy. There's going to be a few like factors which mean that it depends, right? So it's being busy, which is just kind of indiscriminate action, and it's like, I think Tim Ferriss once described it as like, being busy is like a form of laziness, and I really thought about that, and I was like, right, okay, it could, for me, it's like being busy could be a form of procrastination as well, right? So you could constantly be busy doing stuff and feel like you're being productive, but if you really actually sat down and looked at your day at the end of it, you're like, oh, there's literally like one thing that I got done and it took me about 12 minutes, So I have a 12-hour day where I could have been doing some work. I did like 12 minutes of work. That's just not effective. You're busy, but does that mean you're effective? And you're thinking to yourself as the day goes on, I'm busy. Somebody tries calling, he's like, oh no, I don't have the time to take this call. I've got all this stuff to do. And I've got my to-do list I need to call off. It's like, cool, but actually, are you being busy or are you actually being effective while being busy? And so I wonder, is like, I'm trying to like lean towards the other way. Is like, okay, the more productive I become, the more time I should free up for myself, right, to be able to do the things I want to do. And we were talking earlier in our roundtable about systems. So systems help you free up your time as well. So you end up like kind of front loading the work to build a system. And then when you have that working for you, you actually have less time you need less time to work on those things, and you have more time for yourself, more time to learn about things, or more time to spend with clients, or more time to work on a few other things. So there's being busy, which could just be indiscriminate action, but there's being busy with actually getting shit done. And I know, because I've been there as well. It's like, you think you've been busy, and then you look at your stats on your phone. It's like, you were on the screen for like 7 hours. Like, what?
Yeah.
How did that happen? It's like, okay, it's fine, there's 7 hours of screen time, but there's, okay, how much of it was actually me reading an article off my phone, which was useful to me. So, using my phone instead of using my computer because it was just a little bit more efficient, that kind of thing. Okay, if I knock it out, then there's me, maybe it's like, whatever, say 2 hours on, say, Instagram or something. It's like, that wasn't useful. It just wasn't useful. So that's just busy and just thinking, okay, I don't have time to speak to this person, but actually I do. I'm just not using my time very well. And so where I'm going with this is like, what do you think to the idea that actually, if you want to get shit done, ask somebody who looks like they're free all the time. you know? So it's like, actually, what are you doing that is making you so productive? Where every time I speak to you, you seem pretty relaxed. You seem like you haven't. You don't look like you're burning out. You don't look like you're distracted because you just feel like you got something else to do all the time. And you're actually. I look around. And I'm like, you're actually successful. You're actually doing things well.
Yeah.
So what the hell is that? How have you done that? What's the process you've gone through? So just throw that back at you. What do you reckon?
I'm totally with you. The way I'm seeing that is, I think personally, so I'm going to use the example of Jordan Shallow, right? So that's somebody that I look at and I think he's done one to now operate in the other. And what I mean by that is he's been in a place where he's been super busy doing, whether it be on the gym floor, whether it be through chiropractic college, and that's the time in his life where he's kind of taking everything in, and he's probably quite busy. But then as a result, he's put in the place systems to free up time, and he's used the time while he's busy to highlight where his insufficiencies lie, and he's almost graduated to a higher level of awareness with his practice that he can automate himself and automate his systems to deal with workload. And that, for me, it's almost like, if you take it back to training, if you've got somebody in the gym who I'm asking them to, okay, plant your feet and screw your hips into the bench, keep your spine neutral, extend your thoracic slightly, hold the dumbbells at a slight angle, come down to your active range, press into the bench, and return the dumbbells back to the top. Okay, I've just broken out the dumbbell press. But to somebody who can't segregate their awareness and can't be busy and effective, then that's going to seem like, what the hell, no chance, right? And what we've got to do there in that instance, being like aware coaches, is reduce the workload so that they can automate some systems and then get more and more and more and more. Before you know it, the other things become automatic, like the systems you talked about. That system is designed to do one thing, and it's designed to kind of like send an email out, or it's designed to house information, or like create a booking system or something. It has a single function, and in doing that across the body, we end up freeing up more of our time so we can take on more. So I think it's more of a kind of a cascade of, you use the systems as you become aware of the systems, but at the start you almost have to go through that period of, okay, what's too much? And the only way you get there is by being kind of busy, and then you end up automating at the end of it. But I totally agree. There's definitely like, for instance, my mum's a great example. Like, this person's always busy, but you described two people. I've been that person you described as well. Like you said, you'd been that person where I've done loads today, but I haven't really done anything today. And that it's a weird feeling. But then you look at my mum and she's like ultra productive. Like, everything's getting done. But she still is quite busy. So asking her to do stuff sometimes can get done. But I feel like it's through years of her honing and realizing, okay, if I save a bit of time here and then save a bit of time there, I can then go and do this, and I can cook, and I can make this journey, I make that journey. But yeah, man, it's interesting. I feel like the way my life's gone with this is, I've been busy and not had any kind of productivity behind it. And then it's a case of, okay, assess yourself and be like, what the hell are you actually getting done? Be quite self-effacing. And then it leads you to a place where we had that conversation just now about systems, and saying, okay, right, well, I can automate certain things, and I can see where I was overthinking in the past, and I can almost leave this to the system that just does that one thing for me. And then I can kind of free up space to go and do other things. Like you said, the person can then chill and present really, really well. So yeah, man, I see it like a bit of a, I don't know whether spectrum is the right way of looking at it, but maybe one leads on to the other. But I think you're definitely right in both ways. I've seen both done well, but the way you described second, I think, is the ultimate goal, isn't it? Like the way you posed it, which was, I'm busy, but I don't look busy. Like, you're almost making the skill look effortless. It's like the Olympic weightlifter throws the barbell over his head, and it's like, how many different things did you just do like that?
Yeah.
Like, I can't even do any of them, like, ever, like, even alone, like, just the dorsiflexion. I'll be here mobilizing my ankles for the next 3 years. Leave me, please. And that'll be my thing, right? But this person's there with all of their shit down. That's a system working in harmony, right? And then they look at their face, and it's like, yeah, what? I just threw 200 kilos in my head. No big deal. I've been doing this for ages, right? That's kind of the end expression of what you're talking about. So, yeah. But I bet there was a time when that person couldn't, you know what I mean? It couldn't express themselves in that way, and you kind of see in the end product.
Yeah, I like that, because Olympic lift is a super complicated move, where a bunch of things have to go right in the system for it to be executed effectively. So you're doing like you can look at it and be like, okay, there's a bunch of checklist stuff that's going off here. Is like check, and like you said, man, you break that down, is that's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of time to first get right. And so you're going to have to get busy, focusing on like small things, and then eventually that system starts to fire up sequentially in coordination, a bit more effortlessly, and then so it's less about, okay, I need to do all these tiny little things, and more about, the system is just doing what I need it to do. And and that's what I was saying, is like, you front load that work. It's like you're busy, but you're being effective. That's the difference. And you front load that work, and then eventually you don't have to be as busy as you need to be. And I think that's useful for people to hear as well. Like, you just, again, like you said, man, you just got to be honest with yourself, right? Is you have days where you're like, I'm being busy, but was I effective? And that feeling as well. I get that feeling. There's something that just goes on in here, in my gut, and I'm just like, something isn't right. And last week I talked about like the procrastination, and I get the agitation, and it'll be the same sort of thing, where it's like you feel like you're being busy, but then the agitation starts to kick in, and it's like, oh, you know what that feeling is? That's me. That was just busy indiscriminately and not actually being productive. Yep. And so I challenge people to just pay attention to their cues. Pay attention to how you're actually spending your day, because there's so much more that you can get out of your day. And especially if you're saying you don't have time to train, or you don't have time to do something to take care of your body, pretty sure you do. So you just need to figure out where that time is. That's it. It's just a matter of being aware of what your schedule looks like and fitting in somewhere, because I think if you're just getting pulled around all kinds of directions, and you think that consists of being effective, then it usually isn't. And just applying that to just physical health, if like you want to basically break in that time so that you're taking care of yourself. And it's like, it's not the same thing, but it just led my mind to the effort you put in the beginning. Maybe going to the gym 3, 4, 5 times a week, let's say, but then maintaining maybe 2 to 3 gym sessions a week, and so basically your time spent maintaining is less than the time spent getting you to the level where you can start to maintain, right? So I wonder what your thoughts on that would be. But that's the way I look at it, is, okay, if you're happy with the result you achieved, then actually maintaining that result is going to take less time and effort than you getting there, but it's still effort, but it's less time and effort. So it's the equivalent of, all right, being busy and effective in the beginning, but now you're just you've taken away the need to spend tons of time on something, because you can just do it a lot more effectively.
Yeah, man, I totally agree. That's an experience I've had with training, where I'll have people ask me like, oh, what do I do for this? It's like, I did that for this, if that makes sense. I mean, common one I'll get is, oh, well, how do you get big traps? It's like, well, I spent ages at the start of my training just shrugging until my shoulders touched my ears. Like, that was it. Like, until I had like this shit just going on, right? And now I do nothing. I do zip. I have not done a shrug. Yeah. I do a shrug sometimes. I just for nostalgia, just to be like, I'm stupid. And I have to load this bar up with like all the plates in the gym, thinking that my ego wasn't out of control, which it totally was.
Thinking your ego could build your traps.
Yeah, bro, it defo did. Like built by ego, built by watch me not back down now.
Yeah.
Like create all the dysfunctional patterns everywhere else.
Bro, yeah, create a t-shirt out of that, man. Built by ego.
Built by, yeah, that's it, right? I love that.
Or it just says it. It says it like the Adidas strips just go across the shoulders here. Yours just says built by ego on the strip on there.
Make that right now. Gurinder decided to trademark. That's ours.
That's you, man. That's you. That's you all the way through. I can't even get my shoulders up. Like I've got too much neck. It's like anybody seeing this on YouTube is like just go on YouTube. 45 minutes in, just look at the difference. It's just wild. Like when people say like, who's the guy you do the podcast with? I was like, oh, Umar. He's like, yeah, he's a mountain. It's like look at this. Look at his traps. Is basically what everybody says to me. I'm like, yeah, the dude's fucking jacked because he's worked at it, you know. And then there I am, just like. coat hanger shoulders, just trying my best to just get my traps to look even halfway like Umar's.
but my man, what you see on the surface might not be what we actually want. You know what I mean? The amount of times I've been like, man. Damn these fucking traps, like upward rotating these scapulars to death, just like. It's like you end up making your bed. Now you got to sleep in it, and you got to try and organize a bench press when all you have is this going on. You're just like, come on, where's my shoulder stability? I need to give you some depression at least, right?
Exactly.
Like, nope,
pros and cons, man. Yeah. Pros and cons. Pro is you definitely ain't getting choked out when you're like that. Cons are I can't do anything else in life. It's like somebody put a jacket on me, please, man.
That's it. Internal rotation? Nah. Forget about it. Yeah, see you about next life, maybe next life. We'll start this again. Yeah, but that's what people don't. We're so like visual. Like we've been told that mass equals betterment or like it's desirable. But like I get that question at the gym, and like you'll be like a 17-year-old kid. I'm just like, don't do it though. Just don't do it. I'll tell you how. I'll tell you how to do it. But please take it. Please just forget this as soon as I feel like I can get that Man in Black thing out and just erase your memory straight away. Like I don't want you to go down this path because I did that. And then if you don't then go and back it up with endless Kelly Starrett videos where you're jamming balls in your traps and try to roll that shit out and try to externally rotate and friggin' floss your shit, then man, it's going to lead to bad places. But exactly. I don't even know how we got here in the podcast, bro. I'm just, how did we get to traps?
I don't know, man. I don't know, but it was a fun little detour.
Yeah, too right. We got to segue again. We're going to segue again to our secondary topic, right? We're gonna. So we had a really nice review this week from another what was it? Co-worker of mine. Shout out to Streatham Ice and Leisure over there in Streatham Hill, Streatham Common. Can't remember. Is it even Streatham Hill? I can't remember if it was even those two things. Anyway, next to the big Asda, next to the big Tesco. Sorry, not Asda, Tesco. Really nice gym where I met a guy called Johannies Williams, who messaged me this week, and he's told me this in the past, but this was the first time that he told me that he listened to the podcast most weeks, and for him, we haven't spoken in ages, but for him, it's been like we talk every week. What are you about? You talk to me on the podcast. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I haven't heard him in a long time, but for him, it's like, I see you all the time. Don't worry about it. So he gave some really nice feedback about how the podcast is helping him. Helping him with the way we would love to help people with this podcast. Now, we know our intention is to just, we've had our awarenesses all over the place, right? And then we end up focusing them in, and they become effective for us. And like you said earlier, we become more effective at traversing our lives, right? And this is the thing that he feels he's gained in the podcast. So it's really nice. He's super funny about it and super congratulatory about it. So a little shout out to Johannies first. And while we were talking, we ended up getting onto the subject of breathing mechanics and talking a little bit about how to understand breathing mechanics, because it's something that's really starting to poke into the industry, and I feel like it's quite an interesting thing to think about. But as is the way with the fitness industry, it's all over the place, right? There's people talking about like shallows takes the piss out of yoga people talking about like namaste and just like
Yeah.
breathing, kind of like just because just breathe, man. Like the softer approach to things, and then you got people like Chris Duffin like breathing in and having intra abdominal pressure and using it to move obscene amounts of weight off the floor, right? So there's opposite ends of the spectrum. One is trying to get parasympathetic as hell. The other person is trying to tear the earth off its foundations. So
Yeah.
where do we kind of enter this space, and how should we understand things? And I've been there where I've been super lost with this stuff, but I think a lot of the foundation of my understanding, I've got to link it back to Nick Daniel, and what his intervention was for me with breathing. So when we first started working together, he did on me a breathing assessment, and he asked me to turn to the side of the screen. So I looked that way, take a big breath of air in, and I just want to see what's going on. So I was like, okay, cool. Did it, didn't think nothing of it. Was like, okay, I thought Nick just wants to take a before and after picture and wants to have me
Right.
kind of inhale, exhale, cool. But little did I know, he was checking out that I was breathing from my chest. I was breathing quite like what Shadows calls apically expanding, which is using my strap muscles, my neck muscles to lift my rib cage anteriorly and kind of project, like try to kind of like pull the air in this way. So I was kind of going,
So, yeah. So you want to see that on YouTube. But for for anybody listening, is
oh yeah, good shout.
what
Good shout.
Umar's doing is expanding his chest forwards
Yeah,
and back again. So that's what he means by anteriorly too.
there we go. There we go. Thank you, Jude,
But,
for the assist on that. Teamwork
always,
makes
man.
the dream work, bro. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Hell yeah. Always got your back, bro. Always got your back.
Lovely man, you lovely man. Right. So let's start breaking that down a little bit. If I'm standing here, and what I understood afterwards was that if I'm breathing out to the front, and everybody who's not on Spotify, who's on Spotify right now, go and check the video out because this will make much more sense. What we have is we have expansion at the front side of the body, and we have compression at the back side of the body. Because for me to go this way, something over here has to kind of follow and assist on one side, right? Like one muscle contracts, the other muscle relaxes, right? That's the way you kind of got to look at it. And what that was doing for me was it was putting my rib cage, and let's think of it like this. Let's look at the layers of like anatomy we have around our breathing. We have these two big lungs, and they inflate and deflate. And we have a rib cage which sits around them. We have muscles that sits around the rib cage, like intercostals and your obliques, which pad onto the top of that, and then your abs. And you have your lat muscles and your pecs, which kind of sit on top of that. And based upon how we breathe and how our muscles sit on top of our rib cage, can actually start changing the shape of that rib cage, right? So we can start altering our foundations based upon what happens, right? Think of it like the earth and its tectonic plates. Like stuff starts bubbling and under the surface, and all of a sudden shit starts rising up and creating mountains and starts like just changing the way things sit, right? And that's happening in our bodies all the time. So me understanding that was the first thing, and me going, oh shit, I had no awareness to the fact that just because when I breathe in my chest rises, that I'm changing shit. And this made total sense afterwards, because the effects that I've felt as a result of opposing that action. So what I mean by opposing the action is I was anteriorly expanding, but now I've been taught how to posteriorly expand. And what does that require? Well, it requires a reversal of that action. So I'm trying to anteriorly compress, or anteriorly kind of depress myself, and posteriorly expand. And not to let somebody kind of, I don't want viewers to get kind of confused. That's not the be all and end all, but that's just a kind of a remedy to to even out the state of play. So we had a lot of anterior.
In your particular case, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's caveat with that as well. Yeah, everybody will be different. My issue was this. Anteriorly, I was very competent. Posteriorly, I was just jammed up. So for me to start getting some movement back here, I've got to start working at anterior compression, posterior expansion. And the results I saw with this were huge, like absolutely fundamental differences, which would make sense because I'm literally
Yeah.
altering my foundation. I'm altering the bones, the structure, the road work that keeps me up, standing up, right? I'm changing my bone shape by going through breathing methods like bear breathing, which is something that Nick taught me, which is you're in a crooked over position. Any of my clients will know this. Anyone with that I've kind of diagnosed with a similar issue. Even people like scoliosis, I've tried this with and it's worked really, really well. Is that when we have this disparity between expansion on one side, compression on the other side, we've got to try and reverse that round. So we end up getting in a position which compresses the front and exposes the back to more expansion, to more stretch, and we end up breathing into that now exposed position. And the results I saw from this were that my rib cage now expands posteriorly. So when I breathe, it's bizarre, but this stuff moves, the front stuff moves, but the back stuff moves as well. I was like, oh shit, I've got mobility here now. I've actually got the um the whole back side of my body, like my lower ribs, and the lower ribs will move first because they're light and they're not attached to anything. So if we think about if you try this exercise, and we'll probably I don't know how we can get this to you, but yeah, we'll figure that out another time. If you try this exercise, this bear breathing exercise, because you have these low floating ribs, they're almost like small, spindly, light things, and they're like your beginner weights. You'll move them from day one. But the big stuff, the heavy stuff, the leaded stuff is like the shoulders, the scapula, the fixed ribs, which as we get better at breathing into certain compartments in the body, as we get better at excuse me, as we get better at anteriorly compressing ourselves, we can then push that air pressure higher and higher up so that you actually feel movement along your shoulders and actually feel movement along the ribs that sit on the backside of my body, but quite high up. So for instance, if I'm moving, let's have a look. If I'm moving this stuff down here,
So that's the mid back area expanding
yeah,
through there.
kind of mid and low back. Like that's my butt. This is my low back. This is kind of my lower lumbar spine. This is kind of the easy stuff to move. But as I work up to up here, this stuff's much harder, much more, I'd say, heavy, much more densely compacted because we've got more musculature around that area that's actually affecting our ribcage from the outside in. So this is where doing things like foam rolling, stretching can actually dampen the nervous system's grip on these muscles and allow us to slowly breathe into these compartments as well. Now, long story short, I've understood this brief bit about breathing and it's affected me on a physical level to the point where I've altered how my ribcage sits. I've altered how my body kind of accepts air and how it moves air around my ribcage. And as a result, I've gained what we call posterior expansion, and that's allowed my ribcage to support my scapula. Because before, I was in a position where my posterior side of my ribcage was quite compressed. That's the word we used before. Let's stay with that word, compressed. What we have there is we have the surface level, which is the scapula, sitting away from the ribcage. And we had this, what we call like dissociation, where this is my ribcage, this is my scapula. There's kind of this gap in between. And they don't really ever, they're not synergistic. They don't work together. You know what I mean? We think of like a couple that's on the rocks. They're away from each other. You know what I mean? They're not really kind of together. They're not a team, right? And therefore they can't be affected together. But now I've learned how to, this guy over here has learned that, oh shit, I wasn't actually doing my bit. So I've stepped to the party now, and all of a sudden the scapula and the ribcage are moving together, and they have the ability to work from each other, with each other, to provide stability to the next thing, which is the whole shoulder structure. And now the shoulder's more stable. And then we can look at the muscles that attach to the shoulder, being the large trap muscles, the large latissimus muscles, the pecs, the triceps, the biceps, all that stuff. And those guys are like, oh shit, like mom and pop are doing great. Now the kids can play as well, right? Like that's the way we can kind of extrapolate that out. And my personal experience is looking at breathing from not just a what's the word, psychological perspective, but from a physiological perspective, I've had these changes occur in me, which have allowed me to access ranges of motion, allowed me to access different exercises, and understand the role that breathing can play in my training, which was largely weight related, move that load and keep moving that load, but didn't really take it back to this level, which is breathing, which is quite bizarre, because if we stop breathing, you ain't gonna live, you ain't gonna have anything else to play
Yeah.
at, you know what I mean? So let's address that stuff first. And yeah, good results.
Yeah, 100%, man. Good results, great results. It's
Yeah.
it takes things to another level. So it almost sounds nitpicky, right? To be picking away at breathing, because like when you point out that if you don't breathe, you're going to die, basically. So it's a fundamental thing, but it's so fundamental that we do it on a level where we don't have to pay attention to it, and so just keeping us alive. So because of that, it gets people going, wait, breathing? No, well, I do it all the time. Yeah,
Yeah.
but there's lots of things like you could do which aren't optimized. It's like there's plenty of things that we do which we don't optimize. Like the quality of the breakfast that we eat on a given day. We're just talking about being busy. Being busy versus actually being effective. Is like so those are things we do all the time. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're being effective. But and even when it comes to the brain and the body. Breathing is an involuntary thing, but we actually have conscious control over it as well. So it's a very we can make it voluntary to affect our physiology, to affect our mental state, and to affect our physicality as well. So when we and so that whole involuntary piece as well is like your nervous system is essentially telling your body how to perform an action based on how well it perceives it to be able to do that. So because the whole idea is like kind of survival, when you're not moving optimally, when you're not doing something optimally within your body, say you have tension somewhere in your body, that's still got to be taken into account by the nervous system. So it will take that into account and say, okay, well, something's too tense here. Let's just say it's too tight in the abdominals. And so I still need you to perform this action. So I'm going to get you to do it in a roundabout kind of way. So you do that. So you can keep moving forward. So if you're tight in the abdominals and your brain goes, well, I can't, you're tight in the abdominals, which is making it difficult for you to breathe. So I'm going to find another way for you to breathe. And that's going to be, say, chest breathing, because you're tight down here, and then you start to lift your chest to be able to inhale, and that's a function to help you stay alive, but it's not optimal. So then hopefully that means you can see and understand how just because it's something that you do involuntarily and your whole life so that it keeps you alive doesn't mean that you're actually doing it well. There's lots of ways that your body will find its way around a problem that you have in your body so that you can actually just keep moving forward and keep living in life. So you want to bring it back to breathing mechanics because it's foundational to how well your body moves. So what Umar learned through that process is that if breathing isn't on point, then nothing else can be. Right, the quality of your movement sucks. The amount of effort you have to put into movement is greater because the quality of your breathing is not so great. And what else? Your state of mind is not as good as it could be because your quality of breathing isn't great. When you have good quality breathing, you might actually notice about yourself that you have a bit more a calm disposition, because your body's not on high alert, your brain's not on high alert because you can't breathe effectively. So what's happened there is by breathing effectively, it's allowed his joints to sit in more optimal positions, and so when they're called upon to be used, they are a lot more efficient. So almost every other week I'm getting a message or you're telling me something about PBing, in your workouts, in your program, and I'm going to say, and you can tell me whether it's true or not, is a lot of that has got to do with the fact that the foundation has been sorted out with good quality breathing. So your Zercher squat, you're talking about PBing, and that PBing in some overhead work, you like with some windmills, with some kettlebells and stuff. It's like everything was just getting better and better and better and better because you have a better connection with your body, because your breathing was foundationally more it was optimized and became better for you.
100%, man. 100%. That's exactly the way I look at it. Like, I'm sat on my bed right now, and if I don't put the bed sheet on properly, doesn't matter what I put on. Doesn't matter what I put on the duvet, or how nicely I arrange all the pillows and the teddy bears. Like, the bed sheet.
You got teddy bears as well.
You behave. The bed sheet is everything, right? That's the foundation. So, or you can take it even deeper and be like, did I even put the bed together properly? Like, if I'm just sat.
I'm sorry, man. I've got this image in my head. And you know what? It's like you said teddy bears and stuff. That cracked me up. I was like, you got teddy bears on your bed? But I actually started thinking that you've just got a grizzly. You sleep with a grizzly bear because we call you Big Brown Bear as well, right? So I'm just like, you just cuddle up to a grizzly bear, like an 8-foot grizzly bear, like that weighs like fucking 600 kilos at night. It's like, this feels so nice. I'm contented. Like everybody else has got a teddy bear. Like Umar's just got like this 8-foot, 600 kilo grizzly bear that he goes to bed with.
I love it. Do you know what? That is legit my spirit animal. To deviate the subject. I watched a video once of this guy sat in like Yellowstone National Park somewhere in the US, and he looks to his left, and there's just this big old bear there. And I looked at this bear, and I thought, I know you. Like I feel you. Just like. They don't chill with anyone. They're just on their own. They're cool. Like they're totally civil. They can hang out with other bears. But man, that's my guy. That's my guy. 8-foot.
I think was it like the guy's camping out and he just takes a video and his bear just comes along, just sits next to him while he's like over the river stream, and then it just goes away again.
Yeah.
But I think I said that to you because I was like, this is what it's like chilling with you. I'm just that dude, and then this big fucking giant bear just comes on screen. I'm like, yeah, that's Umar. That's what it's like chilling with the brand.
That's too funny, man. Oh man, I completely forgot that. I completely forgot that. That's too funny. I love it when he's just like, hey, stay there. He's just like the bear.
Yeah.
Like, what, man? I'm just moving. Like, I'm not here to eat you. Like this salmon.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll have this salmon.
That's man, that's too funny, man. That's too funny. Sorry, man. That just it set me off on one. I had to just bring that up, like that image. But
a podcast is segues. Yeah,
exactly. But the breathing mechanics, doing the bed sheets and all that. Go ahead, carry on.
Good segues, man. Yeah, you're totally right, man. You're totally right. The change, like you touched on something really important earlier that I want to go back to. I remember being like overly aggressive in the gym, because I had insufficiencies elsewhere. And like, you can play that card, but it's just a wear on the system. It's a wear on the body. And like, it's nice to have the ability to just think, fuck it, like I'm gonna send it all the way, and if I don't care what happens, like, but it gets old. Like, it doesn't get old, but it makes you old because you're just like, I've got to go there again. Like, my body's just not there for me, so I have to call on this, like, it's almost like self-destructing mechanism. I don't know if you watch Dragon Ball Z, but like Vegeta has that one move where he's just like, fuck it, I'm pulling the pin, right? Like, everyone's going, right? Well, I'm gonna go, but we're all coming with me, right? You don't need to do that all the time. Like, when you start doing that all the time, you know there's problems. And you see people in the gym like just like repping for the sake of it, but their joints are in the wrong positions. They're not developing the right way. The anterior delts all the way over there. Their biceps all the way over there. It's like, what are we doing here? Like, can we? But this is it. This is when you have
just dismembering themselves.
Yeah, 100%, man. That's such a great way of thinking about it. But we don't stop to think about it. We just get lost in the environment. The gym, we just pump in, and we're like, everyone's sweating and big weights and whatever, man. It's just it's not the right way. But now I feel like we're understanding so much more about the body, and it's so much fun to be in our industry right now because we get to play with all these new tools. And then what you touched on was like, imagine if you had a finite amount of ability, whether that be across your mental state, across your muscular system, across your output neurologically or whatever, right, and your awareness. But if you free some of that up, you can almost blast it back in and use it for this one intent. Like, the way I think about this is like, you see not Endgame, what's the one before that?
Infinity War.
Infinity War, good man, right? Infinity War. Iron Man's fighting Thanos. Like they had him,
Yeah.
but then he breaks out, right? Sick
Mm.
scene. And then Iron Man's like, his suit's like, see the
Fucking
bit where,
Star Lord, man.
I know, man. Keep it in check. But
That
you
guy.
would lose your shit
Yeah.
though. I mean, if you, this guy's just
Yeah.
done evaporated your girl. You're just like, wait,
Yeah.
no, no, right? Anyway,
Yeah.
um, so Iron Man's fighting this Thanos, and his suit starts to like peel off his body and just become
Mm.
that beam that he's fighting. Right, he's got nothing left. He's
Mm.
just putting all of it into this one thing, and it's such a cool scene because it makes me think of this. Like, we're trying to get all of ourselves to exact on the exercise and kind of push ourselves through. But if he had more to draw from, maybe he'd be able to do better in that instance, right? And
Mm.
that's like us. Like, we've got half of our awareness is dealing with the fact that our pelvis is out of whack or our ribcage is not quite supporting, so we've lost a little bit there. And then we can't get full overhead range, so we're over prioritizing the front delt, so we've lost a little bit there. And there's a bit of pain there, so part of our awareness is split there. But if we just go back and kind of sweep all that stuff away and start like flapping the bed sheet so it lays nice and flat, it's okay. Let's make something nicer on this foundation. You know what I mean? Like that.
Mm.
That's where it should start. But unfortunately, we put the cart before the horse, and we end up where we don't know how we got there. We don't even know how to go back because ego kind of keeps you just driving forward. And I've definitely been there where your body's lopsided and overweight and you're just overly aggressive, but you're just like, oh shit, and I'm kind of stuck now. I need to rewind this shit and get it right, and that's what the breathing mechanics I feel have done for me. So
Mm.
yeah, 100%, 100%. I think having an assessment on how you're breathing, largely. I mean, I'm not a savant in this stuff like yet, but anybody lacking certain joint positions like internal rotation or external rotation can be linked back to simple breathing exercises to try and fix. And in my experience with clients, now learning it from Nick and then translating it forward and getting the reps myself, it's not difficult to kind of highlight to somebody, okay, this is why this is happening. This could be why this is happening. We may have a muscular weakness, but we may also have a support system that isn't supporting you, so you're over prioritizing this over here, and that's what's causing that to really hurt. So let's try this intervention and try and scale the intervention the same way we would scale a push up to a dumbbell press to a bench press or whatever. We're going to scale how you're breathing. So we're going to take you to the floor and make you aware of posterior expansion with a crocodile breath. Then we're going to put some force through it with a bear breath. And then we're going to do some kind of weighted bear breath where we're driving against the barbell and we're trying to send our back to the ceiling, just to create as much distraction there as possible to get more posterior expansion, because that might be what you need to correct this imbalance. And like I said, in my experience, Amy is a great example of this. Come in, wrecked shoulders,
One of your
always
clients.
hurting. Yeah, one of my clients. I've mentioned her a few times. And now just bossing it, like straight up overhead for days and not having any issues with that. So yeah, and that's just, we've not had to look anywhere else yet. Like when things come a crop again, we might have to start like kind of looking in different places. But right now, this fixed what was broke, so we're good. Yeah, man. Yeah. What's been your experience with breathing and kind of positionally aiding?
Bro, I could say so much about it, man. I could talk about it from the physical sense, talk about it from mental sense, talk about it from physiological sense of it basically builds capacity in every way imaginable when you breathe correctly, and also breathe correctly for the task at hand. So there's breathing for everyday life is just, you want to be able to optimize your breathing for everyday life first and foremost, because a lot of people actually take too many breaths, too much air in, and that's actually not good for you. So it sounds like it's the equivalent of too much of a good thing, if you want to look at it like that. So you're breathing excessively, and that's not good for you. So you want to learn to optimize your breathing, and generally most, I think it's like you don't want to be doing more than like 6 to 10 breaths a minute essentially. So it's not that many. It's not that many breaths, and most people are at like double that basically, which is not great. and for everyday life you want to be nasally breathing as well. So when you fix that up, you actually get more oxygen delivery to the rest of your body compared to if you're mouth breathing. So just pay attention to yourself, essentially the way that you breathe. If you notice that you're breathing consistently through your nose, mouth is closed, great. If you notice that every now and then, or more often than breathing nasally, you're breathing in and out through your mouth, then that's a bit of a problem. So you want to start getting that looked into. Where it all started for me was definitely from a physical point of view, looking at having that background in rehabilitation, especially lower back pain rehabilitation, and working with like chiropractors and physios to help people do the right exercises to get them back functioning, back pain free again, and just regain that total confidence back in their bodies. It was it almost sounds too much, but it was just the fundamental thing that when that was fixed, when that was corrected, then that was the main thing that ever needed to be corrected, is just getting that right breathing pattern in place. Because with correct breathing pattern, so we talk about it just from a just like in that was just a kind of a day-to-day health kind of point of view. I mean, it's a very, very small part of that, what we just touched on there as well, but just generally speaking, it's going to have a massive impact on your day-to-day health just by breathing correctly, because of how better oxygenated you become. And from that physical point of view, you talked about how it made you stronger and got your joints lined up properly, so your mobility was better. In terms of supporting the spine, it starts with good, correct breathing as well, because the muscles that are involved in optimal breathing are involved in supporting your spine properly as well. So it's not just that it's just the rib cage that's just moving to help you breathe. All the muscles, like the muscles that sit underneath the rib cage. So anybody watching this, I'm drawing a line from my ribs. That's like, and above that line is the diaphragm muscle. Then you've got the abdominal muscles, like that are like a corset around here and around the core. So when you're breathing, they all work in concert to help you engage your muscles properly to support the spine. And that proper support of the spine is not just important for eliminating back pain or making sure or preventing it, but it's important for when you're lifting heavy, especially. It's like when you're lifting and doing any kind of exercise, because your spine, this area is your transmission for your body. So if things are going well here, then it makes the movement in your shoulders, in your hips, a lot more efficient as well. So from that basis, it's a fundamental, it's a foundational thing. Basically, anybody who's got a lower back problem is pretty much 100% of the time they're going to have a breathing problem. So we start to correct that breathing problem and then start building endurance and strength on top of good quality breathing, and then back pain just gets managed and just starts to disappear. Basically, obviously, there's the individual elements that need to be taken care of as well, but breathing is a massive, massive part of that. So that needs to be addressed. And other experiences as well is capacity for exercise. So you might start to, you start to breathe heavy. You start to tire when you're doing, especially a metabolic conditioning workout. But when you start to get your breathing on point for that, and you learn how to control your breath more effectively, you actually, again, it goes back to oxygenating your muscles and your organs better, and because they're better oxygenated, you can actually go for longer. And you can if you control your breath, you can go for longer with that. And another one is just doing breathing exercises in general. So as their own like separate standalone type of workout. So I've done some. I still do it like Wim Hof breathing method. So for anybody who's not familiar, the pattern is you take 30 breaths in and out in a hyperventilating kind of way. So big inhale, let it go with the exhale. Big inhale, let it go. Big inhale, let it go. Big inhale, let it go. You do that 30 times, and on that last breath, on that 30th breath, you breathe you let go the breath out, and then you just hold your breath for as long as you can until you get that urge to breathe. And then you breathe in, you take a big breath in, hold for 15 seconds, and then after that 15 seconds you repeat the cycle again. So another 30 breaths in and out. You do that 3 times, and there's a particular line of type of benefit to that kind of breathing. And then there's other breathing exercises as well, where you are improving your tolerance to building up carbon dioxide in the body. So when you get that urge to breathe, there's you can hold past that. You can hold past that urge to breathe, because you actually do have more oxygen in your body for you to be able to utilize. And when you do hold past that, because that carbon dioxide level rises in your body, and it's actually what carbon dioxide level rising is what triggers your need for air. It's not that you're lacking oxygen, it's that your carbon dioxide level is rising, is what triggers your need for air. So when you start to go beyond that point a little bit, the cells in your body just start to go, shit, I need to become more efficient at using oxygen. So you start to become more efficient at using oxygen, and you are depending on how far you want to take these drills, there's, especially with Wim Hof breathing method, it's hormesis, which just means stress inducing, and but controlled stress inducing as well, because when you expose yourself to stress, just like what physical exercise is exposing yourself to a stress, it's how you get your body to become stronger. So with the Wim Hof style breathing, that produces a stress response in the body, but it's a controlled stress response because you're completely in control of that. You can do it if you want. You don't have to do it if you don't want to, and that helps you to build some level of resilience. But it also helps you to improve the balance between your rest and digest part of your nervous system, which is when you're in a calmer state, and the fight-flight part of your nervous system where you're in that stress state. So this is known as sympathetic nervous system, and this is known as parasympathetic nervous system, where your parasympathetic being rest and digest and calm state. So it improves that balance between the two. And when you have a more balanced nervous system, you have more capacity to take on challenges in life, let's just say. And if we're talking about physical potential, then you have a better response to physical adaptation because of how well you're breathing. And so from that perspective, I've done that as well, personally, and they help to improve my state of mind. Also with Wim Hof style, for example, because that stressed alertness that it can create, in that long story short kind of way, it helps me, say, wake up in the morning. It just gets me buzzing for waking up, and just feel like I've created a little bit of adrenaline rush and just like start get me on my day. And then the other side is that kind of helps a little bit more with my sympathetic parasympathetic balance. So it helps with me, so if I use, because we both use Whoop, right? So I've got the Whoop band strap on, and that tells me how well recovered I am on a given day. And it also gives you stats when you do these things long enough, when you do certain habits in your day long enough and you record those, it tells you the relative effect that they have on your recovery state. So say, for example, one thing that I know categorically now, subjectively as well as objectively using Whoop, is every time I record eating a late meal, my recovery is just way down. It says something like every time you recorded eating a late meal, your recovery is like stupid number of percentage points below what it normally is. And but then when I do the O2 CO2 breath holding stuff, because it's like there's a little bit of a stress response, but then it helps put my body into a parasympathetic state. Every time I do that, my recovery is better than what it normally is without having done that. And so that's without doing any exercise, just that breathing technique. But because, say, if you're doing sprints induces that hard breathing as well, that can have a similar effect. Basically, you can have the effect of a sprint session on your nervous system just by doing the breathing instead. So if you don't have the physical capacity to train on a given day, you can actually do the breathing training, and that's going to help you improve your state of balance in your nervous system. And so, yeah, I mean, there's that side of it as well. So that's always, and that's that's super powerful stuff, because at the end of the day, it's that balance in our nervous system which allows us to feel like we can take on the world, or feel like we need to stay in bed. And stay in bed and like can't handle what it throws at us today. Our resilience and our buoyancy is dependent on how well we breathe for the given task at hand, as well as for day-to-day life. So me having experimented with a bunch of them, and also for the longest time prescribing people exercises based around good quality breathing to help them with their aches and pains and niggles and stuff, it's just foundational. It's just, this is what we build our movement on, is good quality breathing.
Smashed it out of the park, bro. That was really good. Really good.
I had to stop myself as well. I was like, I've got too many things I could keep saying about it as well. But the further I dabble into this, the more of a sense of how fundamentally important it is to get right comes about. And also, it's like breathing, like we said, for the task at hand, right? So you can change how you breathe to get a particular kind of effect. So I was talking about, a little bit of a stress, adrenaline rush in the morning, so that I can actually feel like I'm going to wake up and take on my day. You can slow down your breathing right down so that you can actually get yourself into a calm state. Because breathing, the biggest muscle involved in breathing is your diaphragm muscle, which we mentioned, and that has a direct connection to your brainstem, a part of your brain, which just tells the rest of your brain, with that connection with breathing, tells the rest of your brain what's going on in your body. And so if you're hyperventilating all the time, it's basically telling your brain that you're stressed. There's something that you need to be worried about in front of you. Whereas if your breathing is more calm, then it's telling your brain, oh, everything's okay, everything's chilled. So if you're able to toggle between these different states using your breath, you are able to change your mental state, you're able to change your physical state, and you're able to change your physiology. And that's one thing that Wim Hof managed to do, not just himself because he's an outlier, but he showed other people, a group of people, how to do his breathing technique, and they took him in a laboratory and basically did a bunch of tests on them and injected him with an endotoxin, essentially I think it was E. coli, and which would normally make people start feeling sick within a few hours. These people didn't have any symptoms because they were using his breathing technique. But it was like, that was a consistent effort to use that breathing technique. They were just doing it for like 3-4 hours, and they didn't get any of them, and the control subject, every one of them was sick. So it was a window into how powerful breathing is for your physiology and for your state of health.
100%, man. That's so cool. So I remember the first time that I heard the Wim Hof stuff, just blew my mind, man. Blew my mind in the sense of we always look outward and we forget this it's almost like a non-existent world, so we don't really look at it because it's within, right? It's within, and it's beneath the surface. It's deeper than just biceps, but it's the real strength. It's the real power to kind of ownership of yourself. Starts at cognition, right? Like we always think, we said earlier, like, what am I thinking about thinking, and then layering on top of that, thinking about the next thing that I need to be aware of, and at a certain point it will get to breathing, and that's the way we can almost orientate the human to be like, let me just rewrite this book because you started with biceps. Like, no, let's move that down the pecking order a bit, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Let's look at surviving right first, and then we can evolve forward, and put the importance where it actually needs to be. This is why it's so much fun now, because it's like, oh shit, like it's fun to be in the industry now, because I remember when it was Charles Poliquin and it was external rotation, and it was dumbbells on knees doing this shit. Like this is
Yeah.
legit, right? This is totally legit.
Mm.
But no one was ever talking about posterior expansion and an environment in which this shit needs to be addressed. And we look at the ribcage position, and we look at all this, and all we're doing again is we're applying breathing and like ventilation to mechanics, but then applying breathing and ventilation to, like, I don't know what you would call it, psychosomatics, or like neurology, or psychology, probably better best way to put it, is a whole other branch of this stuff. And it just gets us closer to that deep root of thinking, right? So like taking it more spiritual or whatever. Yeah, man, it's very, very interesting. And you see this stuff through martial arts. You see it through, obviously, always meditation. And it's yeah, man, it's a very, very deep field where there's loads of things to explore. So, and if you're listening to this right now, let's hear some dialogue around you and how if you've ever had different experiences with breathing. What were they? How do they help? And were they on a physical? Were they on a psychological plane? And what were the results?
Exactly. And I mean, to the power of to testify for the power of breathing in psychology as well. Like, I've participated in some breathing groups where they're called like transformational breath, and it's just essentially you're just doing a 90-minute session where you're breathing in and out through your mouth, so you're hyperventilating, right? And there's holotropic breathing, which has been known to create like crazy states of minds for people as well. Like, it can be quite therapeutic, but then there's also, if you've got some like kind of like, it's like how you use these things is actually dependent on where you're coming at it from. So if you're actually somebody who is hyperventilating all the time anyway, then if you're going, like, it's probably not a good idea for you to go to one of these sessions until you actually normalize your breathing first and optimize that. So the psychological impact can be quite great because so I've done like 4 sessions, and this was like a few years ago now as well, where like the first few sessions I came out of them, I was like, I feel amazing. I have so much gratitude for the world, for the people in my life. And like, I was just texting certain people, I was like, you know what, I'm just so glad that that I know you, that kind of thing. It's like, I treat you like a brother, and I see you like a brother, and I'm really happy that I know you. And then in another session, in one of the sessions, I was just laughing my face off. Like, I just got so happy, I was just cracking up and I couldn't stop. And then you get people who are facilitators, so they come around and just make sure that everybody's essentially doing the right breathing pattern, and doing it right, and just making sure you're not like in a position which can compromise the experience and stuff. And then this woman who was just like, she was there, she came by, and I could hear her laughing, and while she was like supporting me through whatever I was doing, and she was cracking up because I was cracking up. So and then when the whole thing finished, and I was just like, I just feel great. And then she was telling me, it was like, it was just such a joy to be around you at that moment because you were laughing so much, and you could just tell that it was just like genuine happiness. It just made me super happy as well. So that was like a really interesting experience. And but then there's another time as well, which really got me thinking about the just how powerful this stuff is and how you got to be careful with it as well, especially when we're talking about something which is supposed to be transformative as well, where it can affect your mental state. And I've heard other people, like I've heard examples of other people as well, where they go off on one, they feel like they're having like a trip, like they've just taken like psychedelics or ayahuasca or something, and they're having this intense experience. And physiologically, partly why it's happening is because when you hyperventilate like that for so long, you are your brain basically thinks you're dying. So for a long enough period of time with that kind of breathing, it starts to obviously do some crazy ass shit, and starts to like whatever it does, like I don't know the exact mechanisms, but it starts to send out like the hormones and the neurotransmitters and neuromodulators and stuff to you know when people like talk about a near-death experience or like on their deathbed and they see this white light and every like this peace comes over them. It's a similar sort of thing that's happening neurochemically in the brain when you do some really, really intense breathing like that. And and for long enough as well. So your brain basically thinks you're dying because part of it is also with that level of breathing, you are you're expunging so much air that it thinks that it's not going to get enough oxygen, or it isn't getting enough oxygen because you are expunging so much oxygen with that level of breath, and so it's just like things just start to shut down. That's where, if you've ever experienced it before, from like breathing like that, you can get a bit tingly because you start to vasoconstrict and you start to try and save all that blood for your vital organs. So that's basically one of the things that's going on. And so from a psychosomatic point of view, from a psychological point of view, people can have some pretty trippy experiences doing some intense breath work. And then on this occasion, the experience that I had was, it's like, especially looking back on it, it was pretty fucking astounding in that I started, because I had a good experience doing them, and on this occasion when I went into it, it's like, just, you kind of set your intention is like, I just want to accept whatever comes my way from this experience. And I was doing it, and I was getting doing the breathing, and like midway through it, I just started feeling like the world was closing in on me, and I started feeling quite panicked, and it was not a pleasant experience. I felt like I don't know if you remember from like watching Superman, the movies or something, when they're putting baby Clark or baby Superman into the spaceship to send him off to Earth, and there's an image where he's being put in as a baby and you're seeing it from his point of view, and then they're closing the capsule. I felt like that. I felt like I was having a capsule closed on me, and I felt like I was just in this dark space, and it was like quite claustrophobic. I was just feeling fucked up basically. And then when the experience was over, they say, okay, we've got 10 minutes left, we're going to guide you out of it now. But my body just didn't want to leave that space. It was just, my mind didn't want to leave that space, because it was like I was going through a tunnel, and I was halfway through going through, and I was at a point where I was like, I really need to see this through, because if I don't, I'm going to be a bit of a mess. But because there's a time constraint on the whole thing, and it just basically started wrapping up the whole session, and I wasn't ready for the session to be wrapped up. And when everybody comes round, I'm still like trying to process what's just happened, and I leave the experience. I finish, and I kind of come round, and I feel like imagine my personality was a mirror, and you took a hammer and you smashed the mirror. I felt like I was just broken into a million different pieces, and I felt completely fragmented, and I was just a bit all over the shop. And the plan was, because I did it with 3 other people that I know, or 4 other people that I know, and the plan was to go get lunch afterwards as well, because it's like an early thing, go for lunch, we talk about our experiences, and just head off. And everything inside me was saying, don't do this, don't go, like, you're not ready for it, you're not up for it, you're feeling fucked up, don't bother. But I went anyway, and then I just kind of like sat at the table with them, and I was just in a total haze. I just was not present, and me, level-headed Brown, right? I can always bring myself round to a given situation. I just wasn't there, and they were like, "You're right." I was like, "No, actually, I'm not. I'm really not okay." And I just felt like I had my personality just shattered into a million different pieces, and I felt like I was broken, and I didn't know what to do with it. It was a bit of a panicky kind of feeling. And so I sat with them, they did their lunch. I didn't even eat because I didn't even feel hungry. I came home, and it was just, basically, I just kind of sat with it. I just let it resolve itself. And I was like it was like a Saturday, so I went to work on the Monday, and I was essentially the same. And it took me a couple of weeks of like, just let time go by, and then that's when I started kind of feeling whole again, if you want to put it that way. Yeah, so it was just this it was an intense experience, which made me. Yeah, it was like, I just felt like I had been broken, and it took me a couple of weeks to put myself back together again, and yeah, Humpty Dumpty style, right? And it was, it was pretty intense, and it kind of made me question a little bit. Is like the not the validity, but like how these kind of breath circles are run. You got to be very kind of careful with how. Yeah, you got to be very careful with how that gets dealt with, because I can imagine that would happen often enough. I mean, there was another session where a woman described how doing that session was like 20 years of therapy in 90 minutes. That's what she said. And she said it was just that powerful for me. And it's amazing because it can be cathartic. And I had the catharsis as well from other sessions. But in this particular one, it made me realize, actually, you could go into some pretty dark places and come out feeling pretty rough on the other side of it if you don't have the proper guidance for it. And so, yeah, it was that kind of experience. And, again, like, I appreciate it because it taught me something, like, just whatever it did. But like, one of the things it taught me was like, okay, I went to a pretty rough place, but eventually I came out of it. I was okay. And it just goes to show the power of breathing. Is initially how this came up, but yeah, the power of breath and how it can affect you psychologically as well. So there's many different ways for you to use breath, and for the sake of your life, and it can make it better, but obviously, clearly, if you don't know what you're doing with it, it can make it worse. But yeah, there's lots of harmless ways of using your breath to help you improve your life.
100%, man. It's like Spider-Man, right? So where great, with great power comes great responsibility. Don't just dump this in someone's lap and be like, yeah, you have it now. So no, teach them how to use it. And I think that's it's an interesting part of the industry where you've got to be quite skeptical, but like, it made you have an experience that you go back away from and you learn from. So it turned out good, right? It turned out good.
Yeah, it's just, what's wild about it is like, I still need to understand what it represents. Like, I still actually don't really know that. So when I do talk about it, it does actually bring something up in me. And so there's something there that's unexplored and which hasn't fully revealed itself to me, and it's kind of scary territory, because it's like, okay, well, if it makes me feel that way, then what the fuck is there? But it's like, when I kind of always trust in, I never say never, so I always trust in the idea that at the right time this will get explored, and I will come back to it, and it will be, when I do come back to it, it'll be the right time to come back to it.
I like it, bro. That's a brave summation of it. So 2021, that's what we're going to come back to it, and we're going to figure that out at some point, right? At some point.
Yeah, whenever it comes, right? It's like 2021 or 2051, whenever it decides to be like, yeah, you need to sort this shit out. Because I have weighed that up as well. It's like, okay, to the extent that it affected me, like, yes, it did, but can it? How much do I need to look into it? The answer is I don't know, but it doesn't feel like it's pressing enough, compared to other things in my life. So, but yeah, at one point I think it will get addressed, and it's just a matter of building up the muscle to go there again.
That's the one, man. That's the one. Be interesting to talk about that process when it comes around again.
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly. Because like, people who have taken psychedelics and ayahuasca ceremonies and stuff like that talk about that happening to them, and I got that in a breath session. Again, the power of it and how it can affect your life, and I certainly, I do recommend people do it, even though I've had that experience. That doesn't invalidate it. That means there's something there to be explored. So if you're going to do something like that, you got to be doing it with people who know what they're doing for sure, and you got to be doing it with people who, worst case scenario happens, they know how to guide you out of that.
Too right, man. Too right. Interesting stuff, man. Interesting stuff. That topic on breathing went really deep. So people, if you're listening, get in touch with your own thoughts on that, and where we can take it, where we can take our understanding of breathing. I think I think I'll have to call it there, G, for today. I'm getting shouts from my mum being like, we gotta go. I'm like, okay, cool, let's run out.
That's
But
cool, man.
I appreciate the time, man. It was really, really cool chat.
Yeah, that was cool, man. I'm glad you brought up the things you brought up as well. That was some powerful stuff. And then to everybody listening, watching, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the show. If you're enjoying it as well, hit that 5-star rating and review on Apple iTunes and podcasts, and also tell us what you think as well. Get in touch with us. Find us on Instagram at Evolve Achieve Thrive, and give us your thoughts. The things you agree with, what you don't agree with, what your insights were, what you resonated with, and we love to open up that dialogue as well, because it's always cool to get different perspectives. And another thing is, we are taking a week off next week. We've got a sabbatical from the podcast, so we're going to have 2 weeks between this episode and the next one. Give us some time off for Christmas, a bit of recharge, and hit the ground running come 2021. And so we wish everybody listening and watching a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas, everybody. All right, see you soon.